What would you do if one day the world simply forgot you? Your friends, your family, everyone you've ever known. They all act like you never existed. And the more you try to prove you're real, the less you seem to belong. It started as a typical day. I woke up, had my coffee, and walked downstairs. But when I said good morning to my wife, she just stared at me, blank, confused. It was like she didn't recognize me at all. At first I thought she was joking, but the look in her eyes, it was real. She didn't know who I was. I tried calling my best friend and my coworkers. No one knew me, not a single person. It's like my entire life had been erased. But the more I tried to reconnect, the worse it got. The world wasn't just forgetting me, it was erasing me, slowly, deliberately, and I couldn't stop it. This is the story of the day the world forgot me. It was a day that started like any other but quickly spiraled into a nightmare. It wasn't just about losing my identity, it was about losing my entire existence. The more I fought to prove I was real, the more the world seemed determined to make me disappear. Stay with me until the end, and I'll show you just how far reality can bend when it decides you don't belong anymore. I woke up like any other day. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until I went downstairs and saw the look on my wife's face. It wasn't the look of someone who had forgotten to say good morning. It was the look of someone who had never seen me before. I remember that morning vividly. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window, casting warm light on everything. I rolled out of bed, stretched, and headed downstairs for my usual cup of coffee. But when I greeted my wife, her expression was blank, confused. "Good morning," I said, expecting her to smile back. Instead, she stared at me as if I were a stranger. "Do I know you?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. My heart raced. This couldn't be happening. I reached out to hold her hand, but she recoiled, her eyes wide with disbelief. I called my best friend, someone who's known me for years, and his voice was cold. "Who is this?" he asked, and my stomach dropped. That was when I realized this wasn't a joke. No one remembered me. Desperate for answers, I grabbed my phone and dialed my best friend, Mike. We've been inseparable since college and shared countless memories. But when he answered, his tone was distant. "Hey, sorry, I don't recognize your number," he said flatly. My mind raced. How could this be? I tried calling my coworkers, my parents, and anyone who knew me, but each call ended the same way: confusion, denial, or outright rejection. It was as if my existence had been wiped clean from everyone's memory. I rushed back home, hoping to find some clues, but as I entered, the house felt unfamiliar. Photos on the walls were different. Furniture had been rearranged, and there was no sign of me anywhere. It was like I had never lived there. I went to the office hoping someone would recognize me, but it was worse than I thought. My desk was gone. My name wasn't on the roster. My ID didn't work. It was like I had never been there, like I never existed. With each passing hour, the reality of my situation deepened. I decided to go to work, thinking that seeing familiar faces might help jog someone's memory. But when I arrived, my desk was empty, the computer was logged off, and my name had been removed from the employee list. Panicking, I tried using my ID badge, but the system rejected it. Invalid credentials. I approached the receptionist, but she looked at me with the same blank stare. "I'm sorry, I don't recognize you," she said softly. It was as if I was invisible, a ghost haunting my own life. The longer I stayed, the worse it got. People wouldn't just forget me, they would forget the conversation we just had seconds after we spoke. Doors wouldn't open for me, lights wouldn't turn on. It was like the world itself was trying to erase me. Determined to find answers, I stayed at the office late into the night, hoping to catch someone alone who might remember me. But every interaction was futile. Colleagues I knew intimately acted like I was a stranger, forgetting our conversations moments after they happened. I tried to leave the building, but the doors wouldn't budge, as if they were sealed shut. The lights flickered and dimmed, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. My phone buzzed with messages and calls from people who suddenly had no recollection of me, each notification a painful reminder of my growing invisibility. It was no longer just people forgetting me, It felt like the very fabric of reality was unraveling, pushing me out of existence. I thought I could escape. I thought if I left, if I could find someone, anyone who remembered me, I'd be okay. But every time I tried to leave, the world pushed me back, like it was rewriting itself to erase me. I was disappearing. Desperation drove me to leave town, hoping that a fresh start might bring someone to remember me. I packed a bag and headed to the nearest bus station, but as soon as I stepped outside, the street seemed unfamiliar. Signs had changed, buildings looked different, and the bus I boarded took me in circles, bringing me back to where I started. No matter where I went, I couldn't escape the feeling that the world was conspiring against me. Every attempt to seek help only deepened my isolation, as the world continued to rewrite itself, removing any trace of my existence. I'm not just forgotten, I'm being erased. Every trace of me, every memory, every record is gone. Soon, I won't even exist, and I can't stop it. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I was being erased from reality. My possessions vanished, my voice became more challenging to hear, and even my reflection in the mirror began to fade. I tried to hold on, to cling to any semblance of existence, but it was slipping away. The more I resisted, the faster I was disappearing. My home became a hollow shell, devoid of any signs that I had ever lived there. Friends who once filled my life with joy were now just names on a list, with no memories or connections left. I could feel my presence fading, my existence being scrubbed clean from the world. It wasn't just about being forgotten. It was about ceasing to exist entirely. The horror wasn't in the disappearance itself, but in the relentless force that was erasing me, leaving me nothing but an empty void where my life once was. In the end, I thought I was forgotten, but the truth is, I was being erased. Slowly, methodically, every memory, every connection, every trace of me was wiped clean. My life, my identity, my very presence, all fading into nothing. I can feel it happening now. Every moment, I'm disappearing. Soon I won't exist at all. But the question that haunts me is this: am I the only one? Maybe this isn't just happening to me. Maybe there are others, people who have been erased, lost to time, lost to the world's memory. And what happens to them when no one remembers? Could it happen to anyone? Could it happen to you? The world is vast and reality is fragile. If it can rewrite my existence so quickly, how many others have disappeared without anyone even noticing?